the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
Busy morning, about 9 a.m. High Ash Farm, Case to St Edmunds. The sky's tinged with a bit of blue, so I think it's going to be a good day. But lots of leaves down, Chris.
Yes, Matthew. Autumn is biting in now, as I say. Usually there's a very gentle transition, which there has been this year, between summer and autumn. And because we've had a few cooler nights in the last week or so, so we're just past the middle of October now, the trees have kind of done hasty adjustments, the ones that lose their leaves first, and the woodland floor is absolutely scattered with different coloured leaves. And we're starting off this morning, we're going nesting today.
What, with these beautiful bantams you've got here?
They've discovered the sparrow hide here. We're right in the centre of the farmyard. People walking about everywhere. Blacksmith over on the far side of the yard. Tractors have just gone past. Horses are whinnying. And the bantams have discovered the sparrow hide, because sparrows are very, very messy feeders and drop most of the food on the floor. They're members of the African weaverbird family, and they're notorious for eating one grain and dropping 10 on the ground, which where farmers are right across Africa and into Europe, sort of, they get a very red face. If you often wonder why, that's the reason. It's the sparrows.
The chickens aren't so wasteful, though. They'll tidy up.
They're pretty good at clearing up. Anyway, I'm going to take you into the sparrow hide here, and let's just walk in.
Covered in ivy, just tucked in a
and I just want you to walk in, and there's a little table with two very large industrial feeders in there, each one holding 10 kilos, and underneath is a table to catch all the spilt grain. But if you use your nose, I think it's the first time I've asked you to do something. Can you smell anything?
I don't know.
There should be a kind of musty, acrid smell in here.
Yeah, there is something, isn't there? Yeah.
It's not rat. He's under the table with his tail wagging, so he's very clean. Well, we're infested in here with house mice. Musculus.
Always I'm getting something here.
Yes, they're all around, and they're cleaning up any grain that manages to get to the ground, but they're also excellent climbers. It's an old sparrow hide, and I used to sit in here, and the feeders would have been outside, but I've taken the whole front off the hide, and so the birds can actually come in. There's a bit of mesh over where the door was, but that's only to stop the horses reaching in, which are on fields each side of us, because they love the grain. So sparrows can get in, starlings, and there's quite a lot of spilt grain, but it's an ideal habitat. And house mice are the ones you're most likely to have in your house. They're kind of domestic. They've got this kind of what's called a commensal relationship. That's normally a creature which should form some relationship with another one. It doesn't always have to be man, but sparrows have a kind of commensal relationship here at the farm. They live in close proximity. So do these house mice here.
Is that a sparrow telling us to get lost?
That's a dunnock. Called a hedge sparrow, and it's making this very high-pitched noise.
Somewhere there in the hedge.
Yes. I can see it. Yes, it's a dunnock. I can just see it in the background. And it's making that noise because they're really insectivorous birds. So dunnocks, unlike house sparrows with a very broad beak, you can always tell a lot about what birds eat by the size of their bill. And house sparrows have this very broad seed-eating beak, and the dunnock, or the hedge sparrow, has a very insectivorous beak, rather like a robin. So it'll be after insects, and it will come in here and look for spiders. But the other inhabitants said, oh, it just got a very strong whiff of the sort of oily coat of the house mice. And that's how you'd know if you got them in your house. It's the most likely mouse to have in the house, so to speak. And there's lots of them here. And I've got 2 cameras here, and I've been filming them. They're quite entertaining, actually. There's probably best part of 20 here. Grey, about 3.5 inches long, the body, and the tail is similar length, and they weigh about 25 grams, so getting up towards the ounce in that region. But they breed absolutely incredibly fast. So a female born in early spring can rear in the course of the next year.
Rat is having a good dig there, aren't you? I think he can smell mice.
He can smell mice, and so he started to dig underneath the floor of the hide here.
I've got the spoil all over my boots here.
Yeah.
There we go. Well done, Rat.
He's contributing well this morning. So they breed incredibly fast. Gestation's only about 17, 18 days long once they're pregnant, and they give birth to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 youngsters, and they'll be under the floorboards in your house or in the cavity wall if you get them there. Why cheese in a mouse trap, I do not know, because bread, they're really granivorous creatures. They prefer any food with grain in it, such as bread, for instance.
Peanut butter apparently is quite good.
Yes, that's good for them if you feel the need to trap them. But because they're out here on the farm, they're not really causing any damage in this hide, and they'll come out at night and forage under the hedge here if any further spilt grains are there. And there's a resident little owl sits on the door of the hide and actually gets in here each night. And so it's a kind of that balance. When you stand back, nature will always come in and predators come in. And so it's always interesting. So I thought I'd start this week's podcast off with one of our commonest mammals out in the countryside, which are long-tailed field mice and the house mouse. And there's a scarcer one called a yellow-necked mouse, which we do have at the farm here. But long-tailed field mice gets a little bit confusing because they've got a more proper name called wood mice, and we might catch up with those a little later on in the podcast when we start going round. Rat's doing a sterling job. He's already dug a 4-inch deep hole in quite sharp, gravelly, sandy soil there, and he's scurrying round sort of in between your feet. So he's doing a really good job. So
the terrier in him is coming out.
Is, yes, he is come out. He's come out now, and he's going around the back of the hide. But the cameras are here, and we'll be able to see if we can enjoy some of the footage on this week's Facebook, which comes out on the Sunday. So we'll see if we can capture some of them. It's been a bit dull and gloomy all week, so it's quite dark in the hide. But the sparrows, nonetheless, come in, and it's that commensal relationship which I've learnt about, the wish for animals and creatures to form another relationship with an animal or a creature, which is in this case is me, and I'm actually enjoying having the sparrows back. We've got over 100 here now because I've allowed that relationship to develop, and I feed them, and that's one of the essential parts of having a successful relationship with another creature, and somewhere to nest, which the sparrows have and these mice have. And the same then applies to where we're now going out on the farm, so we should be able to, fingers crossed, catch up with some of the other wonderful mammals here at the farm. So there we are. House mouse, one of the commonest mammals out in the UK. They do live ferally out in the hedges all over the farm, but the best place to see them is in this sparrow hide, or occasionally in your house, where they probably won't be very welcome. But we're messy creatures, humans, so they're thriving in urban areas as well, particularly in their takeaways and things like that, so they have a very wide diet. Rat is using his other sense, his nose, and he's going around everything under this hide. He can sense a rat.
Yeah, he's on a mission, isn't he? That's wonderful. We'll let the mice have it back, and the sparrows.
Yes, well, they seem to cope with all the noise and all the hustle and bustle in the middle of the farmyard. So it is surprising, that's the sort of relationship of a commensal relationship. It's what happens. So they seem to be able to cope with it, and they just scurry out of the way. They've got good hearing, quite small eyes compared to the other species of mice which we hope to visit in a few minutes' time, and so they do have to keep their wits about them because they have a lot of predators, stoats and weasels if they're out in the countryside, obviously kestrels, owls particularly. That's the main part of their diet, be it house mice living ferally out in hedges, or sort of harvest mice, long-tailed field mice and yellow-necked mice. They're all main prey species for our predators. Come on out there.
What's that? White tail. There's a deer of some sort.
We just scared a muntjac. Frightened him out of his wits.
Rat's quite laid back about muntjacks. Right, Chris, we've waded through some grass on the margin of this field, and now we've actually properly gone into the margins here, haven't we? And what are we looking for?
Right, this is it's 6 metres wide, and it's a mixture of grasses and all sorts of wildflowers. It's on the sort of northern edge of a field here, which slopes all the way down to a stream, and technically we could call this a buffer strip, and it's designed to stop water running off the field into the nearby stream and sort of help prevent soil erosion, flooding. It also holds the water up nicely. But it's here at High Ash Farm for another reason, because just behind us on this 7-acre field, quite a small field, big hedge all the way around it, is 7 acres of overwinter wild bird seed mix with some grass species in there. And I've been walking out in the field, and I was quite shocked to start with to see another one of our species of mice nesting out in the standing grass. But because it's a bit damp this morning, I've already made you get wet feet. I'll stick to the margin here, and it's absolutely full of harvest mouse nests. Our smallest, well, it's almost the smallest rodent in the world. Micromus minutis is the scientific name. And I've been trying for several years to actually film them with the camera, but as they're so small, I've had the camera really close to one of the nests, and we can visit it this morning because the young have just left. And if you walk in a little bit more, this is the prize.
Oh, look.
Just here.
Looks like a ball of yarn.
Yes, exactly that. I'll part the grasses, and it's a living nest. You can see there's green all through it, and so what the harvest mouse does, this one's actually braided. I was then going to pull a leaf of the grass out. So grasses are really interesting, because here's the leaf of a cocksfoot grass, and you can actually shred them with your fingernail, which is what can you see? Look, shred it like that, and you get all those lovely strands coming out, but it's still attached at the base. And this is the trick the harvest mouse uses. It climbs up on these stems of grass, gets a leaf and holds it with its 2 front feet, and then shreds it with its teeth. So how does it do that? Because it's on the grass. The hind feet grip the stem of grass, and harvest mice, I think it's our only mammal here with what's called a prehensile tail. The tail actually curls around and acts as a kind of third leg, if you like. And so it then pulls all these shreds, because the grass is still green, the leaf, into a ball and starts to weave it, and then has a little hole near the top. And this is tiny. Is this sort of tennis ball, cricket ball size?
Looks like the inside of a cricket ball.
Yes.
With all the string.
Yeah.
Because the grass that's used has obviously died to some degree, isn't it?
Yeah,
But there are
yes.
living strands in there.
There are. It's green.
It's
and-
6 inches off the ground.
Yes, yeah, probably a bit longer than that. Let's have a look. It's about a foot, look.
Yeah.
There's the ground down here.
And it's
because
built
it's so dense.
And it's sort of constructed between, on stilts, isn't it?
Yes, but the stalks of the neighbouring plants, if they accidentally get embroiled in the structure, so harvest mice nests can actually hang almost off their own leaves, which are still attached to the grass plant. So occasionally stems do get embedded in the nest itself, and the hole, which is on the other side, you can't even get your little finger in the nest hole, and there'd be 4, 5, 6 youngsters in there, as well as mum, which shows you how small they are. They're tiny. Give you an idea, they're between 5 and 6 grams. What's that? About the weight of a 10-pence piece at the most.
Well, I'm very excited about this, Chris, because you've just said at this introduction that they're all over the field.
They are.
And they're really rare, these. So this is terrific, isn't it?
That is. Once combines, because years ago when I was born, all the fields were cut with a binder, and sheaves of grain, whether it's wheat or barley, were all gathered together and tied, and then they were put out in rows on the field to be carted by the farm workers later on to be taken to a stack yard, and those, they were called stooks. You'd put one sheaf against the other, and once combines came, you did away with all of that manual work and the fact that you had a stack yard and they'd come and thrash the stacks around December, January, February to get the grain out of them. And that's how we used to do it sort of a century ago, even less than that, because it's in my lifetime. I can remember the thrashing engines coming to the farm to harvest the grain. But at that time, once combine started, it was feared that the harvest mice, because they nest in cereal fields. Cereals have that leaf, exactly as I was just showing you with the cocksfoot leaf, that you can actually shred. So cereal crops were full of weeds and other things, and so it provided all the food that harvest mice needed at that time. And so in the 1950s and 60s, there was a lot of worry that harvest mice would almost become extinct once combines, because you could use earlier varieties, you use shorter straw varieties over the sort of 1960s, 1970s. So the Mammal Society became really worried. But harvest mice, and I can tell you from experience, are really difficult to observe, to actually find them and trap. They don't like going in traps, so trapping's a really difficult thing to do because they're so light they won't trigger the trap. They did a survey and they discovered that you can actually count harvest mice nests. The best time is in January and February each year, when a lot of the vegetation has died down. You can actually count them then. And so that's what they did. And in the 1970s, they discovered, the Mammal Society, that harvest mice were far more common than was thought. And that's been the case here at the farm. We managed to keep them there. My father would stop the combine when we first had a combine and drive round the harvest mice nest. You could actually see them when you were sitting on the platform and the engine was revving, and he would drive round and leave a little patch so you could actually tell where they were out on the farm. And in recent years, cereal harvesting is happening earlier and earlier. The new varieties coming along. Used to harvest them in late August and September, then it became July and August, and now this year some of the first cereals were actually harvested in June, and that's not suitable for harvest mice, which has affected their ability to breed and to be successful. But to have them here at the farm in quite large numbers is really, really great. And this is where, because I'm kneeling on my knees, you're standing up, you can see I've got a bald patch on top of my head, because sometimes I tear my own hair out, because these margins are hunted each evening with barn owls. And of course, they're both of them really, really welcome. Barn owls are one of the predators of harvest mice at this time of the year. Harvest mice now stop breeding, so this little nest in front of us is empty. and they become terrestrial, and as the cover dies down, barn owls fly along this margin and can hear them moving about in the undergrowth, and then they hover over the top of where the mice are, whether it's a long-tailed field mouse, harvest mouse, or even those house mice that we saw earlier. They fold their wings up and drop down into here, and the talons usually grip the harvest mouse. Although it's barely a morsel, because they're only 5 grams, nevertheless it's a really important food source for them. So on the one hand, I'm sort of rejoicing at the fact I've got harvest mice in quite big numbers here at the farm, and on the other hand, only 2 or 3 pairs of barn owls in the whole area, including 4 or 5 villages around us, so they've become quite scarce indeed. So it's one of those dilemmas of conservation which you sometimes come across. Anyway, I'm absolutely thrilled, but there's lots of other mammals here. Without moving, I don't know if I can do this, there's a big clump of cocksfoot grass here, and one way of finding other mammals is to actually, here we are, oh look, this is purely by chance, Matthew. Just look at the base down here. Can you see all these chewed up pieces of grass?
Oh, yes.
Lots of them. The whole floor is littered with them. Right through here.
That's been a meal for someone, hasn't
Yep, and it's a vole. So voles are vegetarian.
With a pointy nose.
Yeah, no, they're quite blunt nose. You're thinking of shrews, which are mainly sort of, they're carnivorous, they'll eat meat, as do harvest mice. Harvest mice will eat their neighbours if they get too close. They only have very small territories. So shrews eat insects, slugs, worms, things like that, and voles are much more eating the green material in the base of the cocksfoot area. It's quite a luscious grass which grows at this time of the year. Big stems at the base here, and they chew those off and eat quite a vegetarian diet. So there we are, blunt nose, short ears and quite small eyes. The harvest mouse and the long-tailed field mouse, or wood mouse as they're also called, quite large eyes and rather different in appearance, and much larger, all of those. So you can see just in a couple of square feet we've got voles here, we've got the harvest mice, and I know in this margin there's long-tailed field mice which come out here
and they nest in the ground.
Yeah, they'll make a nest very similar to the harvest mouse nest, but either in the base of big clumps of grass like this cocksfoot, or just underground in a hole, and the female will enlarge the hole and take bedding material in there. And that's another one of the species which is heavily predated. Foxes will eat them, badgers if they come across them, stoats, weasels, kestrels, owls, you know, the list is endless, but that is why they're so important out in the countryside. If you've got the mammals, you've got the predators to come in, and that's what all farmers are now trying to achieve, a balance between predators and prey, and that's what makes that lovely tapestry of the Norfolk countryside where we are here this morning. So there we are. Absolutely wonderful just to come across like that, look, and just move it. There's nothing set up here. They're all from last night's chewings, all this grass been chewed up. It's got a lot of sort of cellulose in it, so they do have to eat an awful lot in order to sustain themselves. This is the field vole, one of our commonest mammals out in the countryside. There's probably 100 or 2 down this margin. It's how common they are, as well as perhaps 8 or 10 harvest mice nests just on this strip that we're on. It's absolutely wonderful, and they're now out in the field because that doesn't get combined. That's left until next spring. So this time of the year from now on, the harvest mice, which is what our nest is, about a foot off the ground beside us here, they become much more terrestrial. They spend the rest of the winter down at ground level, not up in the grass stalks here, and they also change colour from that lovely rufous red colour to a sort of russety brown colour, and so they're far more camouflaged at this time of the year, and spending the rest of the year actually on the ground right through the winter, and there's plenty of food for them here. They've just got to avoid the high ash owls. That's all.
Well, it actually feels quite comfortable down here. I might get some of this grass and the cocksfoot and weave myself a little shelter.
Yes, yeah, there we are. Perfect. Look at that. And it's quite sheltered. It's like a little microclimate. So when you get the big winds, because this is so dense, there's no air movement down here, and they can cope with all the varying conditions. And I'm just using my nose, and I keep getting wafts of fox. Hang on, no, it's not rat. He's in my arms now. Sometimes he partakes of rolling in fox poo, but he hasn't. But I can smell a very acrid smell just wafting through, so it suggests a fox has been through here. So those harvest mice, I better watch their tails.
Just the beginning of all the leaf litter here in what I know to be Notre Dame Wood.
Yes, Matthew. We've got woodlands all over High Ash Farm, and this is one of the smaller ones. Rat is continuing his digging quest this morning.
He wants to be a miner today, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he's
going down there, both front feet going, and his head's down the hole now, sniffing. I think that's a rabbit burrow. It's a very sandy, quite steep slope here, which is why the farm donated this hectare of land. It's only, 100 metres by 100 metres. That gives you 10,000 square metres, which is a hectare, which is about 2.5 acres. And it was planted by the children of Notre Dame School. We've been here many times before. It planted in 1990, and it looks as though it's been here forever now, and it's really getting going very nicely. So I brought you here because we're kind of looking at nests and habitats, and again, this is a good time of year to start looking for birds' nests. Don't do it in the spring anymore when they're nesting and laying eggs, but now's a good time to find out what you've got out and about.
Because the nests have been abandoned, and you can see them with the leaves.
That's
off
right,
the
the
tree.
leaves are just coming off, and I'm just scanning about in the tops of these trees above us, and just beside us there's some stick nests over there, and it's the formation of a new rookery which is broken away from the one at Dunstan on the other side of the A140, and there's some in Caister Hall Wood as well, and some on Caister Park, which is part of High Ash Farm, and there's a dozen or so nests here. And although we've had some quite strong winds, the rook's nests tend to stay from year to year. So it's a good time to sort of be able to count the nests and to actually see how they're constructed, but just made out of sticks, really. So quite interesting to see them lasting through the winter months. We won't walk right down the slope, but there's a dozen or so nests there. I'm just ducking and skirting around. Then there's another one, just as we've come into the wood. We've got a track through the middle of the wood here. And this is another one made completely of sticks, but a member of the same family, the corvid family, and it's a magpie's nest. And it's rather like a rook's nest and a carrion crow's nest made out of a crisscross of sticks. But then, because magpies kind of have this guilty conscience, Matthew, I have to laugh at what they do. If we just walk a little bit closer, you'll see it's a bit bigger than it should be.
It looks like a ball.
Exactly, yeah, that's good.
Whereas the rooks are more platforms.
The rook has a platform nest because rooks don't steal each other's eggs, but magpies...
Swallows flying into one of the large barns at High Ash Farm, feeding their young. This is one of the big conservation success stories I know you're very proud of.
Just brings a huge delight for youngsters just waiting for mum and dad.
The podcast aims to bring you sights and sounds like this every week, and we're very thankful of your support. So any donations or subscriptions are very welcome indeed.
All we need is a little bit of extra help. It just keeps it going from week to week.
Monthly or one-off subscriptions, whatever the size. And the website, highashfarm.com/podcast.
6 youngsters right above our head, all with their gates wide open.
The thieving magpie.
Exactly that. So what they do, they build a stick platform, and then, it does make me smile, they put a lid over the top of it to cover up their own eggs, to stop either other magpies stealing the eggs or other egg thieving birds, members of their own family in fact. Things like jays will steal eggs, and carrion crows as well. They're notorious egg thieves in the spring. I'm just laughing particularly because Rat is making quite good headway down here. The front half of his body's just about disappeared now, and he's working really hard. The odd root's in the way, and he's grabbing that with his teeth and cutting it through. So I thought I'd bring us in because it's always fascinating. We can see the nest really clearly now. A lot of the leaves have come off. Some small bird just flew in and across, so I don't know what that was. Let's have a look. Oh, long-tailed tit.
Oh, just at the top, there's
Yeah,
2 of them.
2. There'll be a dozen or so.
I can see more movement over here.
Yeah, they form little troops at this time of the year, family groups, about 8 or 10 of them together.
There is still leaves to keep them covered up to some degree, isn't
Yes, but that was lovely to see that. Yes, and you'll see them one following the other, just going across the top of the canopy. Lovely.
They go fast, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and they'll be joined by blue tits and great tits, and also the ones that I came across here in this wood about 2 podcasts ago, which was the goldcrest. So we're just walking through the centre of Notre Dame Wood now, and it's really nice habitat. Very dry still on the ground here at the moment. And then here's our next nest, which is again in the hawthorn in the understory, but it's a good 20 feet up. Just a mishmash of crossed sticks. Can you see it? Almost we can see through this one.
Smaller than the magpies.
Yes, and that's a wood pigeon. Just one of the crudest nests, just a stick platform. And most pigeon and dove species nest out like this with a small, turtle doves do it. Collared doves quite often in buildings, but they will nest out in conifers as well when there's a bit more cover. Leylandii is a favourite. That's one of our fastest increasing bird species in the UK, the collared dove. Stock doves, a little bit unusual because they'll nest in tree holes as well, so that's interesting. So the wood pigeon will have long left the nest, just use it once usually. The female will incubate the eggs under there. Sometimes they'll add a little bit of grass, but that one's almost see-through on the base, just a mishmash of about 100 twigs. You'll see both the male and the female wood pigeon gathering the sticks to take up into the top of the tree. And then we're just walking on a little bit further. Let's have a look, because there's some other nests in here. They're sometimes quite difficult to see. There, just about 20 yards away, a huge nest structure. Can you see?
Yes,
it's
I
in
can.
that Scots. No, it's a Norway spruce. So it's about 2/3 away up. So it's about 40 feet, 30 feet up the tree there.
So is that one of your big birds of prey?
And that's what you'd think, because that's what it looks like, but it isn't. It's a grey squirrel dray. So
right.
There's squirrels here, and they've made this huge structure, but it's not got a flat top, which is why you can tell it's a dray. It's a huge domed structure, and it's kind of perched in amongst the branches. There is a lot of material there. If you had a very, very large wheelbarrow, that wouldn't fit in it. So just amazing. So this is what you have with biodiversity. You start to have a whole variety of different species. Rat has come along the track with us, and he's inspecting all the rabbit holes, because it's a steep slope down here, almost too steep to farm, and so the rabbits are making the most of the gravelly soil here and digging in, because it's nice easy digging for them. Now it's the ideal habitat. So we can just walk on a little bit more. Only 2 or 3 trees further. We're about in the centre of the wood now, Now, Scots pine in front of us. Way up at the top is a large nest, probably 4 feet across, something like that. That one has got a flat top, and believe it or not, this year I kept quiet about it. We had buzzards nesting in here. This is our 3rd pair of buzzards at High Ash Farm that have nested successfully this year.
So before, you haven't had buzzards in this bit of wood?
No,
You've
it's
had
the
it
first
over
time.
at
They're
Fox's
over in
Grove?
Fox's Grove and Cantley Hill Plantation, and the next wood, which is just higher off High Ash Farm property, is in Arminghall, and that's called Arminghall Wood, and there's also a pair in there. So locally, that I know of, we've got now 4 pairs of buzzards, and they've all been pretty successful this year, rearing at least 2 young buzzards. One of them has just reared 1. I don't know what happened, whether the other egg was infertile or sometimes eggs get damaged. But they've all been successful, which is why I see buzzards on a daily basis now.
Top of the food chain,
Yes.
and that means a healthy ecology.
Yes, that's what one of our kind of apex predators. Apex means kind of top of the tree. In the water feature, we would look at otters as the apex predator. Out on the farm here, it would be foxes and badgers, who've got this quite wide diet base in what they choose to eat. But the buzzards, they'll, because of the sort of habitat here with the rabbits I've already mentioned, there's that link between the buzzards and the rabbits, because young rabbits are rather sort of innocent, I suppose, and the buzzards just sit in a row of dead oak trees that stretch away from us and wait for young rabbits to come out of the burrow in the early evening, and they'll just swoop down, hardly with any effort at all, and take dinner home with them, and bring it back to the female who was incubating on the nest right above our head, but right at the top of the tree. This
Miles
one.
up that,
Yeah,
isn't
it is a long way up, so it's quite safe. And because the structure of the nest, it stood the 2 or 3 gales that we've had in September and into October, and it's remained untouched. So there we are. And right round the perimeter of this newly planted wood, when I say newly, it's coming on for 40 years now. It's quite a dense hedge, and there's lots and lots of birds' nests, small birds' nests, many of which have actually been blown out. Oh, rook going over the top, 2 rooks going right over the top of us then, just calling out as we're walking along. And we're now coming out to the southern edge, and there's one that really intrigued me, because I walk through here every morning after I've done my litter picking. It's my kind of reward to watch over the years how the woodland is developed. And I stood exactly where we're standing now, and I looked through the hedge. Rat's just shot past us. He's hugely excited about this morning. And I saw what I thought was the only bird it could be was a short-eared owl, actually resting and being very quiet. You can see its tail hanging down. Can you see that?
Yes. It's an odd shape. Is it a nest?
It really is an odd shape. It is a nest.
But the outline, it wasn't moving, but then owls don't move a lot, do they?
No, so I got closer and closer, scratching my head as to why the owl hasn't flown out.
Wow, look at that. I can see the light coming through it, and there's honeycomb.
Yes.
Whoa. Just hanging from this little...
So what's happened, there's been a swarm of bees in the area, and it shows how first observations can sometimes be a million miles out. So my owl has turned into honeycombs, silhouetted through the hedge, and the swarm, obviously, the queen landed here, and the scout bees went out everywhere, and there's lots of empty nest boxes and things in the area, and for some reason the scout bees didn't find the new location. So the workers that left the hive or the hollow tree with the queen decided to start building honeycombs there so that she could carry on laying her eggs.
It's about 8 foot off the ground. It's
Yes.
hanging from these smallish trees, this hedge.
Yes.
And
don't know how many combs we've got there hanging vertically down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some partially built, which are still pure white wax on them. And obviously something happened, or they decided to leave, or they got rained on with one of the big storms that we've had. But it's sealed at the top. It's really incredible. So when it does rain, they've kind of sealed over with wax. So the combs hanging vertically down.
How rare is that?
It's unusual to see them right out in the open. Nearly always the swarm will just be there for a day or 2 days only. But to stay here that long, it is a bit unusual to say the least. But it's on full view, and I did scratch my head as I stood 20 yards away and thought it can only be a short-eared owl that size.
You've got some man-made hives just behind you there.
Yes, there are, and it could have been one of the swarms from one of those hives there. Bit of an amusing story, because my beekeeper called Callum, he's not very competent yet. He's in his first or second year of beekeeping, and he bought a special queen, which has made me laugh because he had to pay £60 for her, and he killed his old queen because she wasn't very productive, and the new queen, which he'd bought, cost him a fortune, was only in the hive about a day or two, and then she legged it with half the workers. So it could have been her, and of course we didn't know that the hawthorn hedge surrounding Notre Dame Wood was so dense with the foliage, we had no idea. Only 20 or 30 yards away from where his hive was probably where his fantastic new ultrasonic queen was.
£60 queen.
£60 for one insect, yes.
Has he been disheartened by all this?
Well, we laugh a lot, we must say, and he does give me a share of his honey. He's very, very fair beekeeper, so I get a couple of pounds of honey for his year's work, and he has the other £4, so he shares it out 2/3, 1/3. But I have informed him where I think his special queen went. But all around here is fantastic habitat, and so I'm not surprised the bees decided to stay very locally and feast on all the pollen and nectar field, which is right beside us here at Notre Dame Wood. So there we are, a whole selection of different nests, because that is a bee's nest, if you like, right behind us. And so it's always interesting to see the development of woodland, because this was just a bare field with some old barns in the far corner of it, and they got demolished because they became decrepit and needed knocking down. And so we made the most of this hillside here. It's quite a steep escarpment going down, and planted these woods, and it's one of the most delightful bits on the farm now. It really is absolutely lovely.
And those children from the school all those years ago, well, they're probably knocking on retirement now.
Well, it's quite shocking how quickly, because it's just like yesterday that all the children were here. I think it was Steve Harris from Norfolk County Council came to help them, but the children raised the funds for all the tools, and they all planted different tree species, nearly all native trees here. Field maple in front of us, small-leaf lime just back there, and some of the other native trees. There's one there called hornbeam, which looks as though it's a bonsai tree. It looks as though it's been here forever, gnarled and twisted already, but it's one of our British natives, and they're just turning into that lovely golden colour against the sky, and that's the first blue sky I've seen in days, just coming across the top of us. So a delightful place, and a huge variety of animals and insects, all enjoying this new area of woodland.
We have emails from all over the country, and it's always lovely to read them. Well, not just the country, all around the world as well. But we're going to head off up to a wonderful part of the world, North Yorkshire and Masham, famous for its sausages. You know?
Yes, and sort of cliff climbing as well. It's up in there in the Peak District, where the limestone crags are, and there's some pretty challenging climbing up there.
And Chris is listening to us up there, so hello to you, Chris. And he says, just wanted to mention the fungi you keep coming across on your walks. As you mentioned, it's an edible fungi and one that you really should try. My way of cooking it's very simple, keeping the flavour and texture. The important thing is, once you've found and picked a young piece of it, slice and blanch it in boiling water for a couple of minutes. This removes the bitterness. Pat dry, fry in a piece of butter until nicely brown. An autumn treat for me if I come across any.
Wow, yes.
Which one was that,
It's
then?
Chicken of the Woods. Do you remember? Right in the centre of High Ash farmyard, quite close to where that sparrow hide is we visited early this morning. This kind of sulphur-coloured fungus kind of flowed out of the tree, and that was in its perfect state when it is edible at that. And now, when I looked at it this morning first thing, it was pure white like chalk. So completely inedible now. That's the thing with a lot of the fungi. They're only sort of really good for a very short time. Fungi have so much water in them that generally they collapse very quickly or go brown and look really unappetizing. But I always say to people, don't eat fungi unless you're 110%, if that makes sense, certain that you know what you're eating.
Go to Sainsbury's or Tesco.
Well, other supermarkets are available as well, but we're standing quite by one of the large pastures at the farm, and I can see what looks like field mushrooms.
These white dots here.
Yes, when you look, you can see a huge circle about 30-40 yards across, and that's fairy ring champignon, and the fungi are only growing on that dark green circle you can see. So that tells you that it's not field mushrooms, although those are another edible species if you get them young, but always be really, really cautious.
Have you had many of those lovely field mushrooms with the pink gills?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's been a particularly good year for them. When we had some early moisture after the long warm period, it activated the mycelium in the soil, and we had them springing up all over the farm. And I did mushrooms with virtually everything. I love to cook each evening. I did a whole variety of different dishes, and I usually add a little bit of garlic, although they have got their own flavour, so it's important not to mask that completely, but nothing like fresh mushrooms straight off the field, and that often happens. In fact, right through my childhood, everything on the dinner table came from High Ash Farm. My mum was a real professional cook in her youth before she married my dad. That's perhaps why he married her. I never found out, but it's really interesting to sort of sit and know that everything you're eating is produced within a half a mile of where you're sitting. Wonderful.
It's a great time of the year for foraging, and it's a lovely time of the year to hear from you on the emails and however else you want to get in touch. The email address, by the way, is chris@highashfarm.com, and to keep the podcast going, we're looking for any donations,
Yes.
and those of you who have made a donation already, thank you very much.
Yeah.
highashfarm.com/podcast.
Yes, hugely grateful for everybody who's helped support us. We've been going quite a long time now, and I always thought I'd run out of topics, but I think the topics are building up on top of me, and I'm having a job to keep pace with them all. So I hope you always find it interesting, and it's just a treat for Matthew, I, and Rat here in front of me to come out on the farm and enjoy autumn sunshine. I now think we're going to get some, Matthew.
I think Rat's worn out all that digging. He'll probably be lying by a radiator this afternoon.
No, my central heating's broken. I've just got a log fire at the moment. So never mind. See you soon.